fast.
So we really just want to mess with people. Yeah.
Is Aaron just not going to bother?
Pardon?
Is Aaron going to join by,
Said she was, but, you know, it depends how she feels.
No, I tried to call her, I didn't get any response.
Yeah, she may, I talked to her this morning, she was gonna try to come, but I think, she might have just been coming on to it, took a turn for the worse, but anyway.
I did
you know.
get a confirmation she's not going to join.
She's not gonna join us? Okay. That's probably better. Okay. I mean, for her, not better for us, better for her. Okay, all the planning commissioners are here, so I'm gonna call the regular meeting of the Carmel-by-the-Sea Planning Commission to order. I wanna welcome you all here today, and I'm really impressed with the cars you all drove. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Delves?
yes?
Commissioner Carter-Petkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Here.
And Commissioner Allen is absent.
Okay.
Just voted on being here.
I know.
Good job.
Okay, the first item on our agenda are the public appearances. I have to read you a little blurb here. Under the Brown Act, public comments for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item. Public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to subject matter under the jurisdiction of this legislative body. Hateful, violent, and threatening speech is impermissible public comment as it disrupts the conduct of the public meeting. This is a warning that if a member of the public attending this meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act, that speaker will be muted. Okay, having said that, are there any members in the audience tonight that would like to address the Planning Commission on any items which are not on our agenda, which are of matter concern and under our jurisdiction? Nobody in the chambers here coming forward? Anybody online, Leah?
There's no one online.
Nobody raise their hand. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, announcements. Are there any announcements from staff?
Sir.
Any announcements from the commissioners? No. All right. Any announcements from the public? All right, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine in nature, and they don't normally have discussion, but they may be agendized for a later date. Any item on the consent agenda can be pulled as requested by a member of the audience or the commissioners for questions or additional discussion. We have 3 items on the consent agenda tonight. We have a use permit 24195, Cultura. We have a design study 23216, a workman application, and another design study DS 24193, cruise application. Do any members of the public have any questions or want any items pulled? Any of the commissioners have any questions, want any items pulled?
No.
Okay, in that case, I will make a motion that we accept all the items on the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Carter-Petkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is passed.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
You said accept, but it's actually approve the items on the consent calendar, isn't it?
I'm sorry, what?
We should be approving the items, not accepting the items.
That's
We're-
correct, yeah. The
Yes,
correct
we are
word is
approving.
approve.
Yeah.
I stand amended.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to the public hearings this evening. Before we get started on the public hearings, I allow 3 minutes for public comment. I allow 5 minutes for the applicant to make their initial presentation, and I allow them some additional time as necessary to answer any questions from the public or the commissioners. So the first item on the public hearings is item number 4 on our agenda. This is a design study. This is DS 23108, the Chadwick application. This consideration of a Track 1 design study referral, associated coastal development permit for the installation of a driveway gate located on Scenic Road 2 northwest of 8th Avenue in the single-family residential district. We have staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the applicant is proposing to install a 4-foot tall driveway gate as well as a pedestrian gate associated with the driveway gate. The project was initially scheduled it's not initially, originally scheduled in July of 2023. Following the publication of that staff report, the applicant requested a continuance and made design changes to the fence based on feedback in the staff report. The project was reconsidered in January of 2024. The Planning Commission considered that revised design and denied the driveway gate. Those findings were adopted in Resolution 2024-003-PC. The applicant did file a timely appeal to that Planning Commission decision, and in April of this year, the City Council considered that appeal. At the City Council hearing, the appellant presented new information to the City Council that was not reviewed by the Planning Commission, and the City Council moved to deny the appeal without prejudice and provided direction to the applicant to return to the Planning Commission for reconsideration of the gate with that new design. So this is the progression of design changes. Initially, what was considered at that first July hearing, this was actually never presented to the Planning Commission, but was part of the published staff report, was a solid wood gate to match the adjacent fence with an in-swing gate. The fence was then redesigned to have a bronze driveway gate with a matching pedestrian gate. This was the design that was denied by the Planning Commission and then appealed to the City Council. And then the design that was presented to the City Council and is now before you today includes stone pillars on the sides of the driveway gate, as well as the pedestrian gate, and then a sliding driveway gate, as well as some modifications to the pedestrian gate. So the options for the Planning Commission to consider are to uphold the previous direction, and that would include direction to staff to prepare a resolution for denial. So the changes in design do not substantially resolve the previous concerns and basis for the previous direction and the basis for the policy direction in respect to driveway gates in general. The Commission had previously given direction that driveway gates create a formal and compound-like appearance. Additionally, the Commission has adopted findings that gates are not consistent with the city's design objectives for the protection and enhancement of the urbanized forest and open space resources, and that driveway gates generally do not contribute to the neighborhood character, including type of forest resources present, and that the character of the street and the treatment of open space resources. The alternative would be to adopt specific findings for approval. This would include directing staff to prepare a resolution for approval. As with all projects, they are considered on a site-specific basis and based on the merits of the individual projects alone. If you do wish to pursue this option, staff would recommend returning to a subsequent hearing to adopt those specific findings. Something to consider is the Planning Commission has previously found that driveway gates are inconsistent with the design review guidelines, or design guidelines. So part of our findings for approval that would be required to be made is that the project is consistent with the design guidelines. And then something that also has not been considered, because the location of the project being in the appeal jurisdiction and being located between the first public road and the sea, because we've never considered a project for approval, these two findings would have to be made. The second finding down here regarding the CDP, staff doesn't anticipate this will be an issue, but again, it is just something that we have to consider. And then this, the Planning Commission would need to find that the gate is consistent with the design guidelines, when in the past the Planning Commission has found that it is not. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission provide direction to staff to prepare a resolution for approval or denial as described on the screen. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Are there questions for staff? No questions from the commission? Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to come forward and make their presentation.
Great. Hello, everybody. My name is Arthur Chadwick. My wife and I were owners of this property. So I'm going to make a few comments, and then I'm going to pass this to, we have our architect, our attorney, and our contractor, who also want to make some comments regarding this application. First of all, I'd like to say my wife and I, we love Carmel. We've had homes here for 17 years. The first 7 years were on Carmelo. We had a fair amount of foot traffic on Carmelo, but that really wasn't a problem for us. And I think it's probably not a problem on most streets in Carmel. But Scenic is really a unique street. We all know that. And for most of Scenic, most of the foot traffic, of course, is on the west side, on the sidewalk, and that's well away from the homes. That's not the case where our home is on Scenic, on the west side between 8th and Ocean. We get a lot of foot traffic. I've had people walk up to the home, knock on the door, ask to use the bathroom. People knock on the door, want to see the inside of the house. I had an elderly couple that went down the side, cupped their hands on the windows, and saw us eating dinner. It's very, very intrusive. We're asking for an exception to your rules for at least the neighborhood that we're in. It is an unusual neighborhood with exceedingly high traffic. I'd also like to point out that a number of the homes on the west side of Scenic, between 8th and Ocean, do have gates. Some of them are tall, solid gates. What we're proposing is a see-through gate, it's waist high, and it's on a slope. So anyone walking on the street is going to see right over the gate. We're not blocking any views. The view behind the gate is our garage. I'd also like to point out that on the west side of Scenic, every house south of 8th has a gate. Every house. The Frank Lloyd Wright house, the next house on the point, the Butterfly house. So what we're asking for is not an exception to the neighborhood. It's actually quite common in our neighborhood, and I think it makes a lot of sense. As you mentioned, we made a number of changes to the design based on the recommendations from this group and also from our meeting at the City Council. We think that is architecturally more interesting, and safety is really, really important to us. One other fact that I want to bring up, and I hate to do this, but I think you probably remember that horrible attack at 13th and Scenic a couple years ago. We think about that often. They are our friends. And we do worry about security. Now look, if somebody really wanted to break into our house, they can hop over the gate. But I think a gate at least keeps people from wandering into our property. And we ask you to please make an exception based on where we're located. And on that, I'm going to pass it over to Deborah. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Deborah Castles, and I'm introducing myself to you. This is the first time I've appeared in front of you. I am an attorney with Tony Lombardo's office, and so I'm very happy to meet you. And I want you to know that I've done my homework. I've watched all of the hearings on this matter. I've read all of the reports, and I think I understand where your concern is coming from. But this afternoon, what I'm asking is for you to, if you will, take a step back and consider what was written in the staff report, that there is an opportunity for the Planning Commission to make findings that, based on a site-specific basis, the unique character of this neighborhood permits the consideration of a driveway gate. I think that we can also provide in a few minutes that we have some additional information showing that the gate is consistent with the design guidelines. In fact, I want to make sure that you received Mr. Lombardo's letter from yesterday and that it's part of the record. Your design guidelines include a picture of a driveway gate. I understand as it being an appropriate fence. I understand your policy is to move forward to protect Carmel's character so that the residences and neighborhoods where someone is looking inside are not walled off. I totally understand that. We're saying that this west side of Scenic provides a very different context. Could I have the second slide in the PowerPoint, please? So we're asking you to consider our request that you look at this project on a site-by-site basis and find that The neighborhood context provides unique challenges for this property. That the project is consistent with the neighborhood character. As Mr. Chadwick just pointed out, of the 15 homes on the west side of Scenic, there are only 3 that don't have either walls, garages to the street, gates, or fences. And there is a reason for that. The reason is because of the character of this particular street. Thanks. And finally, at the end of the presentation, I'll talk about how we do think that this is consistent with the design guidelines. I'm going to turn this over now to Eric Miller for a brief overview on the project.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Miller. I represent the Chadwicks as their architect. Can you go to the next slide, please?
I think you got the clicker there, Eric. Try that. There's a little clicker there. See the arrows left and right.
Okay,
Try that. It doesn't work. But
there we go. Okay, this is the existing elevation on Scenic. And you can see, and I won't point the laser because I don't want to point towards Stephanie, but the car with the red hood there, you can see the gate behind it is the one that was approved originally, and it's just a wooden gate. So one of the things that we do want to do is we want to go ahead and replace that with a transparent gate. Obviously, the garage on the left is open to the street, but I think just looking into the property like that, architecturally from a design standpoint, isn't as good as it could be if we did the gate. So you can see here on the site plan, this is the existing site plan. So if you look at the entry walk, there's about 30 to 36 inch step down to the house. We put that curved wall there to transition the planter between Scenic and the house. And I think it's a very successful raised planter. And it really does help the architecture and the design of the building. So one of the things that we talked about last time was potentially having some way of being able to tandem park in the driveway. The Planning Commission pointed out that the swinging gate wouldn't allow people to actually park in the driveway. And so I thought that was a really good suggestion. So we have now a sliding gate so people can pull in and tandem park. I also think that when you look at this rendering, having a 4-foot high gate there, made out of bronze and beautifully crafted in traditional Carmel way, could actually make this a more attractive elevation, because at 2.5 miles an hour, it's more interesting to have a picture plane closer to you and then having the house beyond. So the fact that it'll be beautifully made will actually, I think, enhance the feeling of the neighborhood. You can also see the other gate. Now we're talking about putting stone columns up, like we talked about before with the Planning Commission. So you can see the plan, the sliding gate there, and you can see the columns that we have at the iron gate for the pedestrian and the car gate. Also notice as you come down the stairs is that curving wall. So I know Chairman LePage last time recommended that we perhaps turn the fence back into the house, but the problem is you'd have to rip down that stone column. It's beautifully made, and you'd be compromising the planter. Then when you get to the building itself, there's no logical corner. You're crowding the entry. So you're taking a narrow lot, beautiful house, and you're cutting it in 2/3 and 1/3. You're not solving the problem for the Chadwicks. And I think the design is weaker. The design that we're proposing gives you a foreground, which actually makes it a more beautiful look into the garden. Also wanted to say I was in Trondheim, Norway a couple days ago, and my wife and I were walking through a historic part of Trondheim, and we were looking for the city center, and it was all I could do was not to knock on someone's door and ask, where's the city center? And by the way, I did have to use the bathroom, but so I of course wouldn't do that. But I understand the feelings of tourists, international people trying to walk down a street that has housing on both sides. And you don't know that the beach is on the right until you pass Art's house, because there's one more beyond it. So I really think that just to have compassion for Art and Farah and his family, this is a unique situation. It's a one-off, and it's not setting a precedent. Anyone that doesn't believe that can listen to all of this testimony and the letter that we sent in. I understand if it was a flat lot and maybe a little bit wider, or the house was designed to have a fence return in, maybe so. But in this one, I just think it's a missed opportunity to make the house better and give the Chadwicks a house they can feel safe in. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Deborah. Here's the, do you want me to ask?
Yeah, be my
Okay.
guide.
I don't
That'd be
mind.
great. Let's push it up one.
Okay.
I know that you all have walked there and are familiar with it, but I thought that it would be a little helpful to look at some pictures of what the west side looks like. So on the screen in front of you, you've got, we have a site map that's attached, but the house next door with the gate pulled across, that's next door to the Chadwicks. The other driveway gate is at the front of the stairs. And then I'm showing you an example of the walled off, and also then the no beach access. Can I have the next slide, please? So we feel very strongly that the neighborhood context is not going to be impacted in any way than a positive way by adding this particular gate. And I'd also note that the east side is different because the elevations and the grades are different. So most people are walking upstairs to their house as opposed to being at street level and walking down. Can I have the next slide, please? If you're interested, we can go through, but I know we have a limited number of time, but if each of these slides shows every house and the house across from it on Scenic. And we can go to the next slide. As you can see, we only have 3 examples of a situation, including the Chadwicks, out of the 15 houses on the street that don't have either wall, gate, or fence. Can I have the next slide, please? That's the last one on the street. Could I have the next slide, please? Next slide. I thought it was important to be able to distinguish your previous gate denials. And so I went back and looked in the files, and I think I've got the right ones here. And my understanding is, to me, these contexts are dramatically different than the context of the Chadwick home. Here you can see a forested area and an area where a gate would not be appropriate with the policy that the commission is taking. And the second picture on the right, also elevation uphill, trees all around on a classic neighborhood street. Could I have the next slide, please? In your design guidelines, the fences are to be used to define property edges, gardens, and entrances. I feel that we've shown you that our project does do that. It should exhibit interesting craftsmanship and design. I think that we've had plenty of discussion about what the ornate versus Victorian was, and I hope that you've been satisfied on that issue. Should not block off views to the public. I think Eric has shown how with this transparent gate, a view is not being blocked to the public. I've already talked about neighborhood context and a sense of openness, because through that gate, people can see through into the front yard. So I would ask you to consider whether it's consistent with the design guidelines, and I've tried to pick up all the ones that were itemized in the staff report. Next slide, please. So that concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant? Don't see any questions. All right, thank you. All right, this time I want to invite members of the public to come forward.
I'm the general contractor.
Oh, well, are you,
Comment if you want.
all right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
I was just, during the whole construction, we had, people constantly trying to walk on the property, go through the house, use the bathroom, of course. We had, an outside bathroom there that strangers were always using. And people would walk around the property when we took the bathroom out at the end of construction, and so it was difficult. Always, even I live around the corner on Ocean, and when I drive by some days, I'll stop because there'll be people on their property like standing at the front door, looking at the house when they're not, up here at their home. I'll have to ask them to please leave the property, because they shouldn't be down by the front door. So that's my only comment. That part of the street is what everybody said.
Thank you. Okay, are there any members of the public that would like to make some comments regarding this application? Come forward at this time. Don't see anybody in the chamber getting up. Anybody got their hands up online? Leah?
I don't see anyone with their hand up.
Okay, we're going to close the public comments, open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Carapetkoff, you'd like to start off? You can pass.
Yeah, okay. So I'm glad to see that the proposed gate is now sliding and not, swinging. So that improves the situation with the parking. And last time we discussed that, I raised the question of, lost parking lot or parking space. The gate itself is beautiful. I am concerned, as I mentioned last time, about setting a precedent. We have to verify that if it's true that only 3 houses in that area around Scenic do not have gates, maybe it does make sense to basically say Scenic is an exception or set an exception so that the policy is clear. I don't want to have a situation where people from all over town come back and show us this picture and say, yeah, you approved this gate. We want to have a gate too. And I agree that Scenic is a little bit different. More traffic, more tourists. I agree with that. Other than that, I think the proposed solution is not different from what we saw last time. So the only question is, are we at the point where we want to, make an exception in terms of policy for Scenic? In my mind is the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Delps, your comments, please.
So I was supportive of the gate last time this came before me, or before us, and I think you've made some great improvements that the process has teased out. So thank you for that. I agree, I think, with all of the points that have been made by the applicant. I'll start with the negative impacts of the beach tourist traffic. I believe they are very real. Personally, I live 3 blocks further inland from this location, and I can attest to the existence of all of the negative impacts that they're talking about. Even 3 blocks inland, we see significant trespass on our properties. We do have people taking photos on our front steps, and we do have people doing their business in our bushes. And I can only imagine that it's 10, 20, 30 times worse where you are down there. It's a real thing. And we all get to live by the beach. I mean, I can walk down there in 5 minutes. So there's impacts that come with that. I agree that this particular block on Scenic has lots of walls and lots of solid gates. I'm glad you did the analysis. I walk that street all the time, and we kind of play the same game, and I think your numbers are correct. And on top of that, most of your neighbors most of your neighbors actually are a violation of the design guidelines, because they're a wall. They're a 6-foot wall, even an 8-foot wall, and or a garage door. But there's a whole wall of walls down there, and they really do kind of provide that private compound sense to it. But on this proposal, I think it offers a view into the property. It's not walled off at all. I believe it is consistent with the neighborhood, even an improvement on the neighborhood. And I do think it's consistent with the design guidelines, and I appreciate that you've pulled these out. Whoops. Sorry about that. For the suggestion of a fence parallel to the driveway, which was an idea we proposed last time, I agree with you that in this case it's an inferior architectural solution. I think all it does is end up highlighting a garage door, And conversely, the proposed gate is architecturally interesting, and I think draws the eye into the entire property. I think the addition of the pedestrian gate, also in a see-through manner, to me, that's a big advance forward, because you've even opened up the entire situation more and made it more interesting. On the topic of privacy, I think it's interesting that this group goes to great lengths to protect privacy. Much of what we do is approving homes that are being built on a 4,000 square foot lot next to 2 other homes on 4,000 square foot lots. And staff does a great job of understanding where windows need to be placed, where landscaping needs to be placed to provide for privacy of neighbors, so privacy between next door neighbors in a neighborly way. I think it's important that in this case, we also allow for privacy of the applicant, and it's not privacy from neighbors, it's privacy from complete strangers. It's busy down there, and if rumors are true, and we have a new homeowner across the street down there who is ridiculously famous, I think the security and the privacy situation down there may get even more pronounced. Finally, I would encourage us as a group to revisit the whole walled-off appearance design guideline. I've never thought that a request for a driveway gate is necessarily a binary yes or no test. To me, the key is the walled-off part of this. And that walled off means just that a property is surrounded by solid features like masonry walls, solid wooden fencing, and yes, garages at the front of the lot can present a wall. Tasteful, beautiful, open-spaced fences and gates can actually help pull the eye into the yard and can be an architectural feature that enhances the home. So to my colleague, I think it is an exception. I think it's a justifiable exception, and I think we should support it in primarily the name of privacy and security for our neighbors. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gauss. You ready?
I'm ready, sure. Yeah, thank you for your comments. I actually am in agreement with them on this, and I think that we can make a finding that there are special circumstances and that this is a unique neighborhood. Special circumstances do exist between Ocean Avenue and 8th Avenue on Scenic. And I think you've given us some great examples, great reasons for this, and I do agree that the properties that are on the east side of the street have a completely different situation than those that are on the west side. So I would support that. I'm happy to see that the gate is a sliding gate at this point that does allow a vehicle to be parked between the gate and the garage. And I think that the change in the gate, the entry gate, to match what's going on with the garage or with the driveway gate ties everything together and really makes it pleasant. The only other comment I want to say is that any house that is beautiful house named Carmel-by-the-Sea, everybody's going to want to have their picture taken in front of in front of that. So I would imagine you'll still have people climbing your fence and whatnot to have that background. Yeah, but I do understand that the security situation and privacy situation and the fact that it is open and you can see in, to me, I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner Locke. This project gave me some extra time to sort of think about, what we're doing here and how we do it. And as you see in the staff reports, the staff makes findings to either support or deny a project. And those findings are based in our land use documents. We have a municipal code, which are laws. They're not discretionary. They do allow some room sometimes to make decisions which don't quite, may not exactly follow up. That's usually because there's some gray area in the language. The guidelines under which we do a lot of our review are discretionary, and they're deliberately that way so that we have some ability to allow for creativity, to look at special conditions, but they do present an overall attitude about the community. And one of them is, as you've all mentioned, that we do not want walled off properties in Carmel. We want to have open views through into the property. And this is part of our architectural history and the character of a community, and we've decided as a community this is what we want to preserve. And so that's why in the front yard setbacks, we only allow 4-foot high fences, and it is recommended that they be an open in design. And so when I didn't support this project, and I haven't supported some other other applications in the past, but I thought about it, and I realized that I should be looking at this just in the context of the municipal code and the guidelines and making findings. And as staff pointed out, we don't have a specific ordinance or guideline that denies driveway gates. We do have mention of gates, and we have mentions of fences, and we have specific guidelines and ordinances which address those. So I think in that context, this is a gate. It's 4 feet tall. It's of an open design. It's architecturally interesting. It connects with our architectural history. So as much as it pains me, I think I made the wrong decision before. And so I'm going to support this project based on what I just said, and I think the findings for my support are grounded in the municipal code and the guidelines. So having said that, we don't have a resolution. I think staff was going to make a resolution based upon the discussion or the findings from the commission. Was that my understanding?
Yeah, so my recommendation is it sounds like we have support for the project. I did hear talk of exceptions and special circumstances, so it sounds like it's a one-off and not overwhelming change in policy direction. That's what I picked up on. Please correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Well, one of the comments I was going to make, I forgot, was that I think if the community doesn't want to have driveway gates, then I think it's incumbent upon the community to give direction to the staff and the administration that they want this into the guidelines or an ordinance. And until such time that they do that, I don't think we have. When I revisited this and really looked at it, I don't think there's nothing there that says that we can deny driveway gates as long as they meet the guidelines and the ordinances there's presented and as they exist at this time. So I think that is where we are on this right now. There's been a lot of discussion about a special condition here. I don't think it really has anything to do with it. You know, I mean, it just has, this is a property. They want to put a gate. It meets the description, it meets the setback requirements, it meets the height requirements, and it meets the intent of the residential guidelines and being an open type of design. So I think it's, I don't mean to oversimplify it, but I don't want to overwork it either. It's just, that's kind of where we are. And if we want, as a community, to make stricter resolutions on this, or ordinances, or policies, or guidelines, then that's a discussion that we should have. I know we've got the 2.0 guidelines or whatever; those are still in the works. But I don't know if that was part of the discussion, if that came up. But you know, I think that's how there's something like should be handled. Because what exists right now, as I see it, is there's no way to make any findings against this gate as this particular project has presented.
Yeah. So what I recommend doing is we just bring it back next month just to formally adopt the resolution. Again, there was certain findings that had not been made regarding the coastal development permit. You know, again, it shouldn't be an issue, but just again, because we haven't considered the CDP yet, just to formalize it, make it your findings instead of staff's. Likely won't be an issue. Can probably be a consent item. But we can bring it back with all the findings and conditions.
Is there an option to approve a resolution with findings tonight and conditioned upon, to avoid these people from having to come back again?
If the Planning Commission, so I think we can tease out the findings for the design study. It sounds like it's not so much a matter of a unique situation as much as it meets the findings for not being a walled off situation. I mean, that was basically what I took from that. So that'd be the design study. The other issue is the coastal development permit, as Mr. Court mentioned. You could just state tonight that you feel that and we could put them up if we want to, or you can just state that all of the findings necessary for approval of a coastal development permit are met, and the Planning Commission could direct staff to prepare that resolution as such. And then, as we do with resolutions that come out of this body, typically we have the chair sign it, and then it's approved. So you could, I guess, technically, yes, you could approve a resolution without seeing it tonight, as long as we get all the findings for both the design study and the coastal development permit. Right, Evan?
Yes, if someone could flip it back.
Oh, could you put our presentation back up on the screen, please? IT friends downstairs, thank you. So there you go. These are your findings for the design review and findings for coastal development permit. So if you guys, if the Planning Commission, sorry for being so informal about that, if the Planning Commission feels that all of these findings can be made, you can just say that in your motion and direct staff to prepare a resolution as such and work with the chair for signature on that.
I move to approve this application. That we find that this application, we don't know about the coastal program yet, so that will be the condition, right?
So there generally are, occasional conditions that we might also include with the permit that also just haven't been considered as well. We could also include those as well, just our standard conditions and any special conditions that might be typical of a fence.
So we would suggest that you make the recommendation with the typical standard conditions of approval and any necessary special conditions based on this project.
Would it be more proper if we had staff just bring back a resolution to us in a coastal?
It can go either way. I mean, truthfully, it really can go either way. The more formal process and making sure that all the planning commissioners get their eyes on the resolution would be to come back later. But this isn't something we haven't done before. We've done this before. So if the planning commission feels that you've already seen this once and it's been in city council and you want to move this along a little bit faster, a faster way to do this is to sort of do this verbal approval of a resolution, give us very specific direction on making those findings, and then ultimately you, Mr. Chair, are the one that signs it. So you would then be acting on behalf of the planning commission at their direction of approval.
May I suggest that we still give the building department time to formulate that, because this will have a substantial impact, right? If we're not saying we're making an exception because it's scenic and privacy there is different, if we just say we cannot restrict gates that are 4 feet high and quite transparent, then we can expect a flood of applications from across the city for people who want to put gates. And we know that there are a lot of people who want to put gates.
I agree. And that's why I made the point that I think it's incumbent upon the community to specifically have language in its ordinance or its residential guidelines regarding driveway gates. Because there has been, when I thought about this, I realized that there's been a lot of inconsistency. And I really want to eliminate that. I want to take out as much subjectivity as I can out of these decisions that we make and make sure that the wording in the policies, the guidelines, the ordinances, that's how we're making our findings. So I'm a little uncomfortable with just winging it tonight with and also as Commissioner Karapatkov points out, this could lead to a lot of other types of impacts or activity that we may not had the time to think through with having a well-written resolution. So I would recommend that. In fact, I'm going to make a motion that we.
Let me withdraw mine.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we we approve the design study as presented, but we will at a later meeting we will have a motion presented by staff for the formal approval of the application and a local use permit, coastal use permit.
And if you, Mr. Chair, I can offer, if you want to make it part of your motion that we come back at the next meeting, we can do that. Just out of sort of respect for the
applicant. So we make a time certain, date certain?
Yeah, we'll still notice it like we normally do, but
so
just
our
so
next
that
meeting?
They know that that's what we're going to do.
This will be to a date certain to our next meeting.
And can that be on the consent agenda, or does it require action?
Likely can be on the consent agenda.
Unless one of you decides to pull it, yeah, it'll be on the consent.
I second the motion.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Delves?
Yes.
Commissioner Karpetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
Chair LePage?
Yes, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the next item on our public hearings tonight. That's item number 5. This is a design study. This is DS 24017, the Newman Project application. It's consideration of final design study and associated coastal development permit for the demolition of 2 existing cottages totaling 1,195 square feet and the construction of a new 2,730 square foot, 2-story single-family residence, inclusive of a 300 square foot attached garage located on Carmel Street, 3 southeast of 4th Avenue. We have the staff report, please.
All right, good afternoon, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. So this next item is a final design study for the Newman Project. It's located on Carmelo, 3 southeast of 4th Avenue. Just a quick project description. This is a 7,000 square foot lot.
Hey, Marnie, I'm recused, right? Am I recused on this one?
I think it's Lim.
I'm recused on Lim. Got it. Yep, sorry.
That's okay. So the applicant is proposing to demolish 2 cottages and construct a new 2-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage. The Planning Commission did accept the concept design on June 12th. So this is a comparison of the existing and proposed site plans. So you can see the 2 cottages on the left.
I am recused on this one. It's right behind me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And also Lim, yes.
Thank you for catching that.
Okay. So we had discussed briefly at the concept meeting a concern that the south neighbor had about the view from their kitchen window. The applicant has met with the neighbor again, and staff did receive a note from her today that the project is as was agreed upon. So there's a very minimal roof overhang at the project's primary bedroom, and the west wall plane of the primary bedroom is sufficiently shifted to the east to maintain that view from the neighbor's kitchen window. With regard to the exterior finishes, you did see these at the concept review. There have been no changes since then, with the exception that the applicant has provided a sample of the driveway paver. All lighting does meet our standards. And so staff's recommendation is that you adopt a resolution approving the final design study. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Question?
Was the roof material changed to shakes? I think it was metal before, no? No? Okay.
That was the same designer, but another application.
It's now composite shingles or wooden shakes?
It's a synthetic.
It's a, yeah.
Oh, just synthetic material, okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, thank you. The applicant, please come forward.
And Mr. Chair, while the applicant's coming up, I just want for everyone in the room and anyone watching on Zoom, so Commissioner Delves was recused for this. He is allowed to sit in the audience, and Commissioner Delves has done this enough to know that, you know, he's not making any faces or anything that would influence the Planning Commission, so he's well within his rights to sit in the room. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Craig Holdren with Holdren Liskey Architect, representing Jeff and Noel Newman. Thank you, Marnie. Terrific job. Appreciate it. Yes, they are Sea-Door synthetic shakes, so they are a synthetic version of the wood shake, but they actually are quite convincing. I think that photograph shows it pretty well. We've been through this. If you have any particular questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I think I can keep it quite brief. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Craig? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any members of the public like to come forward and make any comments to the Planning Commission regarding this application? See anybody, any hands going up online?
I don't see any hands online.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comments, bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioner Locke, you comments?
Sure, I don't have much to say other than what I said last time, which is I really think this is a beautiful project. I'm very happy that the neighbor to the south was satisfied with the changes, and I look forward to seeing this. I think you'll be proud to have this beautiful house. Thank you.
And Commissioner Karapetkoff.
Yeah, I look at my notes from the last discussion we had on the subject, and my comments back then were about the high pitch of the roof and the skylights. And I think Eric did a good job explaining that this is not an issue because the house is so far away from the street. So I think there are no changes there. I didn't see any changes in the design, but I accept that explanation. And now that we got clarification on the roofing material, I think I understand the scope of the project. No other comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say I appreciate the fact that you're using stainless steel, type of stainless steel material for the gutters rather than the copper, which so many people come in and show us lately. And it's nice something that when an applicant does some research like that and then presents it, I think it provides information for other designers and architects and owners to see what's been done and gives them direction. So other than that, yeah, we have a resolution here. I want to make a motion that we accept the resolution, approve the resolution as presented by staff.
I can second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Karapetkoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Chair LePage,
Yes,
and Commissioner Delves is recused.
motion is carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I invite Commissioner Dells back? Okay, the next item on the public hearings tonight is item number 6. This is Design Study 23-211, the Hindley Project. This is a concept design study for the demolition of more than 50% of an exterior walls of a 680 square foot, one-story single-family residence, the full demolition of a 226 square foot detached garage, and the construction of a 1,574 square foot, two-story single-family residence and 200 square foot detached garage. It's located on Mission Street 2 southeast of 13th Avenue. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair LePage. So this next item is a concept design study. The project site is a 4,000 square foot lot. It contains a 680 square foot residence that was constructed in 1947 and expanded in 1949. The carport was constructed in 1950, or a carport, and it was converted to a garage in 1957. But it has been in the same location since 1950. And access to the parking is from Rio Road and where it meets 13th Avenue. So the applicant is proposing a substantial alteration, which includes demolition of more than 50% of the exterior walls. They are proposing to retain the north wall and the chimney, and then construct 1- and 2-story additions. The total square footage of the home would be just over 1,500. The project also includes reconstructing the detached garage at 200 square feet, so just a little bit smaller than it is today. With regards to forest character, tree number 8 was rated significant in 2022 when we did the preliminary site assessment and the forester came out and evaluated the trees. However, since that time, it has died and was approved for removal this year. Tree number 6 is a coast live oak that has also been rated significant and that tree is proposed to be retained and protected. The proposed addition does come within 6 feet of that oak tree. The city forester has reviewed the site conditions, the topography, the finished floor level of the proposed bedroom, and is comfortable with a modified foundation design if significant roots are discovered during construction. So with regards to parking, the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing garage, reconstruct it in the same footprint at 200 square feet. There would be no change to the existing driveway or access from Rio Road / 13th Avenue. The driveway does traverse 2 other properties. This is an existing condition, again, that's been in place since about 1950 when the carport was constructed. The owners have obtained an easement from their north neighbor, which is the larger of the 2 easements, to continue using a portion of their property for access. And they are currently working with their other neighbors to the south to obtain an easement for that smaller portion, which is about 16 square feet. With regards to roof form, you can see a comparison of the existing and proposed conditions. The roof slope would be 2 and 12 at the front of the residence, and then 4 and 12 at the 2-story addition. It includes both flat shed and asymmetrical modified gables with varying eave depths. So at the front of the house, the applicant is proposing to increase the plate height for a little bit more interior headroom, which also would increase the pitch of the shed roof. There would be some additional west-facing windows on the front elevation. And as I mentioned, they are proposing to retain the existing brick chimney. The south wall, which is on the right-hand side, would be extended slightly. Also on the south, there'd be some additional clear-story windows for natural light, and a 1-story bedroom addition on the south as well, with a very modest 2nd-story deck, also facing south. The proposed 2-story addition is at the rear of the home. It does step down to the south to follow the topography. On the north elevation, there's a 2-story building mass that faces the neighbor who does not have windows, so there shouldn't be any privacy impacts there. The applicant is proposing a glass block window at the staircase and then floor-to-ceiling windows at the 2nd floor landing at the stairs. So this shows the project site in relationship to the north neighbor's building footprint. While their primary bedroom suite is on their south elevation, you can see there's no windows along that building wall, so staff does not anticipate any privacy issues. Also, the north neighbor has not reached out with any concerns regarding the project. With regards to materials, this is concept, but we'll give you kind of a preliminary kind of view of what is being proposed. The applicants do want to keep the painted horizontal wood siding, the look that's on the existing house. And that would carry over to the other 1-story elements of the project. The 2-story building mass would be finished with shingle siding. They are proposing painted wood windows and doors, wood deck railing for that 2nd floor deck, composition shingle roofing, painting the brick fireplace, and then a wood garage door. So with that, staff's recommendation is that the commission adopt a resolution accepting the concept design study. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Marty, what's the allowable ridge heights on detached garages? The max?
The ridge height on a detached garage,
Yeah, there's a max, isn't there?
there is, it's 18 feet.
18
For a
feet.
single, yeah, it's considered, it's the same as a single-story
Okay, so same.
structure,
So,
yeah. So 18
the-
feet ridge height,
So max 12 plate height and max 18-foot ridge?
correct.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you. This time I'd like to invite the applicant to come forward, make their presentation.
See our tiny little house. We've been working on this for about 2 to 3 years. Marnie's been our go-to, and she's been great. We're excited to upgrade the home. We have original electrical and plumbing, which is pretty much failing. Our kitchen is not usable, so we're excited to upgrade, expand, and be able to spend time with family, because right now it's a one-bedroom, so we'll be expanding to multiple bedrooms. So, as far as working with the neighbors, we have the best neighbors, and Linda to our north, we worked with her. She had concerns about certain windows that she wanted to maintain light, and that's why we put the upstairs in the back, because it doesn't impede. And then she really doesn't want us to put a garage in the front of the house, because the cocktail hour happens right in front of kind of our house, and she wouldn't be able to see the fun. So those were her concerns, and she's been great to work with. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
My name is John Skorkus. I'm the architect on the project. And as Kathy mentioned, they like the look from the street of the house, and they like the low profile and how it just kind of dialed in with the fence and the gate. And so what we did is we tried to keep that, and we tried to be sensitive of, like Kathy said, with the neighbor and the lighting on the front and her windows and sunlight. So we focused the addition on the back, and we did have some issues with tree roots, and we tried to work with those as best we could and work with the forester. And we reduced the upper plate height to 7'6" on that bedroom in the back to try and keep everything as low profile and compliant as we could. So I think we did a pretty good job working with the trees and the site. So if you have any questions.
Any questions for the architect?
Just
Yes.
one, the thing that caught me was the use of the shed roof on the front element of the house, and then the remainder of the house goes to a more traditional roof form. And when I was out there today, I saw that the current roof is a shed roof. And was that the inspiration for maintaining the shed roof in the front?
Maintaining the shed roof. I mean, yeah, we like the look. Plus the shed roof, it slopes down towards the neighbor. So the neighbor was concerned about her front windows and light coming in. So we tried to honor that by keeping that same low profile close to her house.
Okay,
and that's why we kept the shed roof.
Okay, any other questions for the architect? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, are there any members of the public that would like to address the Planning Commission regarding this application?
I'm Linda, I'm the neighbor.
Did you want to come make a comment?
No, they've been very...
Why don't you come up to the mic? Because then we have it on the record.
Good job. He's done this before.
They've been very nice to work with. They even sent me, I'm a widow, I live by myself, a nice letter to my son in Phoenix and to me explaining the drawings and everything they're doing. And they walked me around where they wanted the easement. And they're working with the other neighbor who's like a little pie slice. And I don't care about, I gave them the easement because it's on the other side of my fence. It doesn't matter to me. They just need it to drive over to the garage, you know. What do I care? And I did have some friends, not in my street, but say, well, you don't want to give your property away in an easement. And I said, you know what, my son's looked at this, and my son-in-law, and I'm fine with it. And it's not affecting me. It's on the other side of the fence. And I hope they don't need 2 easements to do that thing with the garage, you know, to have it approved. Yeah.
So are you the neighbor to the north?
Yes.
Yeah, to the north, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Neil, come on, you're next.
Neil Cruz. Good to be back. I have a little concern about how the second story addition ties in with the rest of the house. We're switching exterior materials. We're going 2-story. I'm a little concerned that it begins to separate into 2 buildings instead of looking like all one building. And then my usual concerns about windows with no muntins. I understand the shed roof, that made a difference for me to know that that was existing as well. Otherwise, I would not normally be in favor of that particular type of roof. And in general, it seems like there's a mix of several elements, and I'm just wondering if it could be pulled together a little bit more cohesively. And then reading from the general plan, just in terms of general design character and feeling of the architecture, from page 120 of the 2003 general plan, in recognition of this close relationship between the natural and built environments, and perhaps intended to enhance this fit, many of the city's buildings have been designed with natural materials, pleasant open spaces, abundant landscaping with native plants, Carmel stone, local granite, frequent use of wood in hand-carved doors, window frames, sills, moldings, roofing materials, and signs are all design features that contribute to the village character of the city. These form a contrast to the glass, steel, plastic, and featureless gray concrete so often found in other more modern cities. Again, making the point that it seems to me that we are moving away from the intent of maintaining the design character that still remains in our general plan. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Neil. Okay, anyone else in the chamber? Nobody's coming up. How about online? We got any hands up?
Cindy Lloyd.
Cindy, okay, Cindy, you have the floor. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chairman LePage, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Cindy Lloyd. I spent a number of years living on Mission Street. My grandparents bought property in 1911, and Murphy built them a little house on Mission Street. So it's a very familiar street to me. That particular house was there when I was a kid, and it's nice to see that it's continuing in the same character and design as sensitively as it could be while increasing the living space. And the fact that the neighbors are getting along well and dealing with easements, and the comment that the neighbors on that particular street are so friendly is very heartwarming, because they were, excuse me, and they continue to be. So I'm hoping that the house that is being constructed on the last lot that the family sold, which was where my grandfather had his botany lab and did his research on carnivorous plants. And I hope the people who live in that house are as nice as everybody else on the street. So that's all I have to say. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, any other hands up online?
I don't see any other hands.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission. Commissioner Dells, you want to begin?
I don't have much on this. Like I said, the shed roof in the front struck me at first, but I view it as preservation of an existing thing, and I don't think the back should be, the 2-story addition should be a shed roof addition. So I accept the mixture of elements here, and at least in concept. I have nothing else. I'm curious what my colleagues say about windows. I'm sort of studying them right now, so I'm still trying to think that through. So for now, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Karapetkoff, your comments, please.
Yeah, well, I have a couple of comments. I was looking at this project and trying to understand exactly what was the goal of building or designing this house. And we have in the guidelines this requirement for simple roof. The designer of the house basically tried to make the roof as complex as possible, right? So there are 2 12 roofs, there are 4 12 roofs, there's a flat roof, there's a deck, rooftop deck. So we have like all different flavors of roofs here. And then looking at the siding material, same thing, trying to do any type of siding existing. So we have horizontal planks, we have shingles, we have stone, we have brick. So, and then the windows, I honestly have the feeling that the windows manufacturer basically wanted to do a showroom. Show all of the windows they have, like the small ones, the big ones, the ones that open to the left, to the right, to the bottom. So we have this mix of windows, various sizes, that do not really show any simplicity or any modesty in the design that we're looking for from a design guide perspective. So I'm very uncomfortable with this proposal, honestly, because it's a mix of a lot of things, a lot of materials, and it's good that it's a concept, but my proposal would be to simplify, maybe standardize on 2, maximum 3 siding materials, simplify the roof, kind of figure out a slope that can be consistent across the house, and the windows, definitely we need to do something about that, because there are so many different flavors of windows here. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Locke, your comments.
I appreciate your comments, actually. So I agree that I think that there's too much going on. That the use of the various siding materials, to me, it's too busy, and I think you're right. I think simplifying is the key, and I think to go back and look at how to simplify it a little bit. I don't have any problem with the shed roof in the front. I think actually the west elevation really kind of keeps what exists today, and from the street you really don't see the second story addition that much. So the south elevation, where you've got the big windows that go out to the deck area, that doesn't bother me. I think what concerns me most is the north elevation and the windows that go all the way up to the top, the different pane sizes that are shown in the stairway area. And I think just simplifying everything would definitely help. The one thing that stood out the most to me in just looking at your plans earlier this week was the flat roof that's on this, when you're next to the master bedroom upstairs. And on page PA2, it states roof deck. And I'm looking at it, and there's no access to a roof deck. So I think that was clearly something that was put on that page but wasn't meant to be. And again, I just think you've got a lot of stuff going on. Let's simplify it, and we can move forward with it.
I know this isn't required, but it would really help if designers would give us a 3D model. I don't know what program you're using to design in, but the one I use, that's how I start. I make a 3D model, and it's a lot more intuitive. And when you have a design like this, which is a little challenging, it's a little different, I see it, the approach, the architectural approach it's like a mid-century modern. I mean, that's what's existing there is a mid-century modern. And you've kind of taken that theme and sort of developed it, and I appreciate that. But it's in an orthographic view where everything's stacked on top of each other at the same scale. It's really hard to see what you're actually trying to do here, and I do trust in architects and designers' ability to create designs which are interesting, because I know they put a lot more thought into it than we do. I mean, I saw this, Friday, and you've been working on this, you said, for a number of years. And so I really try to understand what a building looks like, what's proposed to look like, how it works in its context of what's there, or how you're trying to connect to the architectural history of the community, because this is what our guidelines speak to. And in this case, this building where there's a lot of different design elements going on, it would be really helpful to see it in a 3D context. But having said that, I do agree with my fellow commissioners' comments that there needs to be some simplification here. I like the 2 and 12 shed roof in the front. I mean, I really like what's there. I love that kind of extended trellis that comes off that element in the front. I thought that was really an interesting touch to the mid-century modern. You don't see that too often, but it really did kind of add an interesting element, and it was sort of an exaggeration of the overhang. It kind of shoots up, and I know that's been eliminated, but it just kind of shows you where the possibilities are with these mid-century designs, and you know, you have to kind of put your mind into thought pattern of what were they thinking about them, you know, then, and where can you take that now? So in that context, I was a little, the detached garage with the 4 and 12, I thought it would be a little more in keeping with the design if it was 2 and 12. Plus also it kind of sticks out there on the street by itself. But you know, I don't want to tell you how to design the place. I just want to try to understand what you're trying to do. And the guidelines do speak to simplified forms, simplify exterior materials and roof forms and stuff. So I think that's where the direction from the commission is coming from, is just to try to simplify this. And I do applaud, though, making this deep connection with that mid-century modern. I think that's a big part of this community. If you drive around the community, you see a lot of those homes, and I've seen some really interesting creative things done with them. So they're fun to work with, and I think you've got a good one here that you can come up with some good designs. So I think that's the direction from the commission, that maybe some simplification on the exterior materials and the roof forms, and then just, you know, kind of take it from there. And also the windows, you know, you got glass block, you've got different types of windows going on. There's so maybe just kind of simplify that. So any other direction we want to give the applicant? This is concept. So these are just concept direction. We do have a resolution, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just because I didn't say it before, because I wanted to hear what my colleagues said. As I'm looking at these elevations, it is the north elevation that gives me the most pause, that just one long stretch of windows there, and then the glass cube, I assume those are translucent, like glass cubes to the right. Just that whole
glass block,
thank you. It's a lot of glass, and it's it's three different things, and it's just sort of a little bit random, really. So if there's one way to maybe rationalize the use of glass a little bit more, downsize the use of glass a little bit more, to the extent you want to, keep glass. I agree with Commissioner Locke that the south-facing elevation is, no one sees it, and that's where you're going to get your most sunlight anyway. So, enjoy it there.
Okay, I'm going to just keep things moving along. I'm going to make a motion here that we, I guess we're asking for some redesign with the direction that you simplify the glazing elements, the roof elements, and the finish elements. Anything else?
That's well said.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Delbs?
Yes.
Commissioner Karapetkov?
Yes.
Commissioner Locke?
Yes.
And Chair LePage?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. And you don't have to recuse yourself from limb, correct?
I think I still do.
I think you,
Oh, you still do?
yeah, I think you do. I think that the
you had
issue
two.
is that we did hear this one once already. I think Commissioner Delp should have been recused, but that's on staff. We did, we failed to let him know that. But he does need to recuse himself from this one.
And that's because I live within 500 yards, feet.
Yeah.
Feet.
Yeah, feet.
And I believe I do. Yeah.
Okay, so the next item on our public hearing is item number 7, which Commissioner Dells must recuse himself from, and this is another design study. This is DS 22057, the LIM project. This is consideration of a concept design study for the demolition of an existing 1,053 square foot, one-story single-family residence, inclusive of a 2,005 square foot detached garage and the construction of a 1,794 square foot, two-story single-family residence, and inclusion of a 286 square foot attached garage. And it is, I guess we don't have where it's located on there. I'm not seeing it. I know it's on Mission Street, north of, south of Paloux or something? Casanova, yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, thank you. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the project was previously considered at the July 12th, 2023 Planning Commission hearing and was continued with direction to the applicant to revise the project, primarily to address impacts to the northern neighbor. The project has since been revised and the applicant is requesting reconsideration of the concept. The applicant has responded to the Planning Commission's direction, stating we have resigned the home, moved the second story towards the southeastern corner of the property in the orientation here, that's towards the top right, and reduce the second story by 31 square feet. This moves the second story away from the primary viewing areas of the northern neighbor and light obstruction to their lower bedroom by the second, and light obstruction to their lower bedroom by the second story is alleviated. This shift and size reduction lessens the tunneling effect. The second story is narrower and more centrally located between the two adjacent homes. However, the northern neighbor is still concerned regarding the views from the kitchen nook area and the massing of the property from the nook and the lower floor. So what we're seeing here on the slide, the left is the initial design. That was what was presented in July of last year. This yellow outline is the ground floor. The green outline is the upper floor. And on the right, this is illustrating the revised design. The red outline is the ground floor and the blue outline is the upper floor. And then this black line adjacent to each of the two figures is the outline of the neighboring property. And this is to demonstrate just the massing of the properties with really no other distraction in terms of the site plan or the floor plan. It's just a massing diagram. And there's a few of these throughout the presentation. So we did receive a few comments regarding the topography of the site and the adjacent site context through multiple public correspondences that were received. We do have some design guidelines that speak to how to address site topography. These were outlined in the staff report, so I won't read them. However, as we saw on the site visit, the site is effectively flat. It does have an average slope of 4.85% or 2.7 degrees. The site was likely leveled in 1941 when the home was constructed, or a little bit later when the garage was constructed. However, these design guidelines really don't apply in this case. It is effectively a flat lot. In respect to privacy and views, no privacy impacts have been assessed, and there were really no major privacy concerns at the last hearing. The northern windows have been eliminated, or the northern windows on the second floor have been eliminated from the project, and all other views, or windows I should say, have primarily been maintained, so those are not a concern. The view impacts that are of concern are from the neighbor's kitchen nook. Again, we looked at those on our site visit today. We do have residential design guidelines, as you know, that speak to preserving view opportunities. Again, these are outlined in our staff report, so I won't go ahead and read them. You are familiar with them. In this case, the view isn't an ocean view, but it is a view of open space, the forest beyond, access to light, which still is a view. In terms of our findings that need to be made, concept design study finding number 5 requires that the project is consistent with the city's design objectives. for public and private views and will retain a reasonable amount of solar access for neighboring sites. And then it continues to speak about privacy. Again, privacy is not a concern. Then we have our definition for the objective of private view and solar access. Again, this was defined in the staff report, but really the areas of concern that we have are this area right in here, which corresponds to this blue area in this diagram, which is a stairwell feature. It's located approximately 11 feet 5 inches to the neighbor's kitchen nook. So that's this separation here. And then also the impacts to down below. Then the green outline here, that was the previously proposed outline that we reviewed last July. So you can see the change. So you can see it maintained the same setback as before, 11 feet 5 inches, but it's been narrowed. In respect to mass and bulk, between the two revisions, so the left is the revised design, the right is what was previously proposed. I apologize, it looks like this figure dropped down a little bit. The plate and the ridge has been raised up a bit. It has been increased by about a foot. Staff did identify that this taller feature right here does exceed the plate height, so we do have a draft condition to revise the plates to comply with our height limits. But the overall ridge height does comply. It is just the plate. This plate height over on the left side nearest the neighbor's property, that has increased from so these are elevation points. It was 54.16 feet. Now it's 55.25. So this elevation point has slightly increased, as well as the overall ridge height going to 59 feet from 57.66 feet. So the building has increased in height. However, following the publication of the staff report and discussing with the applicant the issues surrounding the project, the applicant has submitted a design alternative, which you received earlier today. The applicant has explored additional options that would pull the stairway farther away from the breakfast nook area. So the bottom figure is what is proposed, and the top figure is the applicant's revised proposal. So where we had that 11-foot 5-inch setback before for that second story, the new revised proposal would be about 15 feet 1 inch. So it's an increase in setback by about 4 feet, and you can see that separation right in here. The feature does get a little bit wider, but again, that setback is being increased.
Do we have plans for that?
We do. Yeah, I have them that we can look at closer. I will say staff hasn't had an issue to review them for any type of completeness or zoning compliance. They were received this morning, but in terms of just a design alternative, that is an option for you to consider. But with that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution accepting a concept design study as described on the screen, with the consideration of additional direction as you may provide for view and massing impacts, as well as considering the applicant's design alternative. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Questions? Okay, thank you, Evan. Okay, I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and make their presentation. Thank you.
Hello, I am Angie Ferris. I'm the designer here. Thank you for hearing my presentation today. Thank you, Evan, for that lovely presentation. I wanted to go over what we've changed from the last hearing that we had last year. The commission had passed a motion of continuance with direction to redesign the home to preserve the northern neighbor's views and tree branch encroachment. We have changed the upper level to be as far southeast as possible, that we feel is possible. This was accomplished by moving the second story moving the second story, making it more narrow and longer, and then with the new alternative design feature, it's actually making it a little bit more narrower at the staircase. At the previous hearing, there was also concern about, we had originally proposed metal roofing, and there was also concern about fence screening in the front. We have changed the material of roofing to be a comp shingle instead. And then for the screening in the front, we have reduced the height down to 4 feet. We do understand that the horizontal design kind of had mixed feelings in the last hearing. We're willing to make a change to make it vertical if that seems more preferred. With regard to the stairwell, again, I wanted to provide you guys with an alternative design because we can make it work if we do move that stairwell a little bit. And if you guys feel that that's an appropriate approach for this, I'd be happy to move forward with that design versus the one that I proposed earlier. It does shift everything to where we're not affecting the trees like that was mentioned before, and does help with the tunneling effect also that was mentioned before. Let's see here. Evan had mentioned there was a public correspondence about the slope of the lot. It is flat. We did explore the idea of a basement. It's just not feasibly possible, financially possible. The walkout solution would not work in this case, unfortunately. That's why we went with the second story above. There was also mention that the house might be historic. With the previous preliminary site assessment, we did have a we had a historical review and archaeological review. Archaeological results were negative and it was not deemed historic in any way. So I just wanted to clarify that. Let's see here. I do understand that any increase in the current size of this home has an impact on the neighborhood, being the existing home has stayed relatively small. But the house is it is small. So Dr. Lim wants to have a house where she can have her family stay, she can enjoy it in her retirement and, be her forever home. Wasn't her intent to cause any disruption in the neighborhood at all by having this design brought forward. And she hopes that eventually it will be seen in a favorable light. And I'm here for any questions that you guys have.
Do we have plans for this latest that we can put up on the projector so we can see what it is?
Yeah. Could we please flip the screen over? Thank you.
This is the alternative.
Yes, this is the alternative.
Okay. Can you scroll to the floor plan?
So this is the first floor. So there becomes a recess where the stairway is. Mm-hmm. And then this is the second floor. So this is where that recess was. This is the garage wall here. And then this is the kitchen living room wall out in here.
So you made it wider because you have two landings, intermediate landings now instead of the one. Mm-hmm. That's how you were able to wind it around.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Great.
This is actually great. This would look better because you can put a very nice light in the middle, and it becomes really a kind of a formal way of going up. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for the designer? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. This time, I'm inviting members of the public that would like to come up and make comments.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Mike McCall. I wasn't here last year. I lived just to the north of Mrs. Lim's property. My mom was in failing health at the time, and I submitted a video last year. I really appreciated your attention to our concerns and requests, and we were excited about the decision to have a redesign. We then, over the course of last year, whether it's here or there, for us it was here, that the story poles stayed there, and most of them were sort of damaged and knocked down by storms over the last 12 months. But when the new poles went up, it took us a moment to determine what exactly had happened. I mean, it was sort of, it didn't seem like enough. So upon further review, I would like to say that I certainly appreciate the efforts of Ms. Lim's team. I do feel that more can be done. You were there today, and our best and most enjoyable meals are in that breakfast nook that still seems so close. And even though the windows have been removed, the privacy issue then goes away, but certainly not pleasant to just stare at a wall as well. And, going back to the folks that were right before us, I mean, my wife and I are envious of the fact that that nice neighbor worked with the person that's trying to design a home. We have tried hard. We have a very close neighborhood. I've never met Miss Lim. I don't know how often she's at her home, or clearly it's a second home for her. But there just hasn't been any dialogue at all, and I really wish that there could have been that. I know you guys appreciate that as expressed, and that would have been really nice. You guys are the only safeguard that we have. You were there for us before. We love the town. We moved here from LA after 25 years, bought that little house, put everything we have into it, moved out for 6 months, remodeled it, and as soon as we were done, story poles went up next door without any communication or knowledge of that from our neighbor. We have 2 daughters and 3 dogs that love it as well. Our concerns are still the slope, even though it's a flat lot, and I appreciate the financial concerns. If perhaps that's the only one, but we would sure love to see a home like ours where the ground floor is half underground, and that solves a lot of problems. It still seems to me, depending on where you stand, that it hasn't changed, and in fact it has actually gone up some, I guess. But those that stood outside my oldest daughter's bedroom this afternoon, and it's sort of like you're looking straight up at that wall. So we do have concerns about the canyon effect still, and the light. The email that my wife submitted prior to today's meeting explains all of this in great detail, so I won't go into any further into that. I hope you all were able to review that, because your drawings and the guidelines that you have set forth, I guess prior to even this body being here, former bodies, it's very thorough. So we put everything into our dream house. It's the only home we have, and we ask that you please consider our position carefully and neighborly, just as you have in the first go-round.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public who'd like to speak about this?
I won't reiterate what Mike said. I'm Gwen McCall, married to Mike, live in that house, as you know. I wanted to thank you and say we appreciate the hard work you do, staff and commissioners. We appreciate this process. I know it's probably been very frustrating for our neighbor. After last year's meeting, we felt hopeful that we could find a way to keep both parties happy. We're the only full-time residents directly near the Lims. We were relieved that the city was looking out for us as well as the neighborhood. We also appreciate the Lims builder and Angie taking the time to rethink the design and its impact on our lives and enjoyment of our home. It's obviously complicated when you're adding a second story, but we are still disappointed that we've had no communication since that meeting, that more couldn't be done to lower the profile of the house. And I do have to reiterate that we've been looking at obsolete, defunct story poles for nearly 2 years. And I reached out to Mrs. Lim about that to no avail, and I know that there's no city. I wrote to Evan and was informed that there's nothing about having to remove story poles until a project is completely either rejected or so. Because of the continuance, we know they had to be there. Anyway, I don't know if the house that is proposed being built was there when we looked at the house, if we would have bought this house, because of the treehouse sort of effect that we fell in love with. So I just wanted to state that. Regardless of what happens today, we do hope that as we move forward, we can have a more positive relationship with the neighbors and the obviously many people who will be working next door over the next year to 2 years. It's been frustrating to not have communication. We appreciate that the Lims want to improve their property. That's good for the neighborhood. We want them to have a home that they love. We would simply like to be able to continue to love and enjoy our home as much as we do now. So thank you again.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, is there anyone online? Leah, with their hand up?
No one with a hand raised.
And there's nobody left in the chamber here that hasn't spoken. So, all right, so I'm going to close the public comments, open it up to the commission for their comments. Commissioner Locke, would you like to begin?
Yeah, Evan, can you put that revised plan back up and go to the north elevation so we can see the whole thing? Yeah, if you could, there, perfect. All right, that was what I was trying to.
This is the revised?
Yes, this is the revised.
Yeah. Okay, so I just have a couple comments on this one, and then I'm curious what my fellow commissioners have to say. I am disappointed that there wasn't more communication between the property owner and the neighbors. Sounds like some of this that's going on right now could have been possibly avoided if there had been more communication. And that goes not only for the neighbors directly to the north, but the other two neighbors that provided information in our packet. I am concerned about the increase in the height of the building. Clearly the height of the building is the biggest concern for the neighbors to the north. However, the shifting of the second story significantly to the south and to the east should, and I understand that because the story poles still look big, but it should have reduced the impact to the neighbor to the north, and particularly bringing in a new alternative today that again moves things to the south should definitely have a benefit. I'm concerned when I see something come in at the very last second, and this really didn't give us a chance to think about how these changes would impact the project in general. And I guess just that's really all I have to say about it at this point. So I'll let you guys go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Locke. Commissioner Karapetkoff, your comments?
Yeah. For some positive comments, I remember when we went to the site last time in July, it was clear that the first proposal is going to put a big shade on the first floor of the neighbor to the north. So basically, these two girls that we saw today, they would be living in the basement if that proposal went forward. So I'm glad we didn't approve that and ask for redesign. Now the new proposal is much better. The only part protruding is the staircase, right? That's the only one that is on the north side. Everything else is shifted to the south. And unfortunately, you need a staircase to get to a second floor. There's no way to get around that. I wish there was a way to go to a second floor without a staircase, but there's no way. So the size of the staircase, we look at the two versions. One is just going in one direction, then going in the other direction. That creates that brings the whole staircase 9 feet to the neighbor. The other version that came earlier today adds another 4 feet, so it becomes like a 15 and a half feet or something like that between the neighbor's nook and the staircase, which is better, definitely better. The only way to make it even better, in my mind, is if we reduce the plate of the first floor, because the size of the staircase is driven by the number of steps. We have certain regulations, how many steps you need and how tall they are, I think 7 inches or whatever. So the only way to make it smaller is to reduce the number of steps, which means reducing the height, the plate height of the first floor from currently 10 and something feet to maybe going down to 9. That would make it a little smaller. But that is, unfortunately, pretty much the only thing I can think of. And definitely a better I saw good improvement in terms of views from the kitchen nook. It was much more difficult last time. And definitely more light is going to come to the first floor. So I don't see a way to completely eliminate the effect of a second story. That's what happens when you build a second story. I think the designer made a good effort to minimize the impact. There may be a couple of things that can be done in addition to make it even smaller in terms of impact. But we're moving in the right direction. I think we're going to getting close. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you brought that up about, so we got a 9-foot ceiling height on the first floor and
10 in the back.
Yeah, I'm just looking inside. So it says, the plan says second floor is 8-foot ceiling height. Yeah. So, I mean, clearly the intent and the direction of the Planning Commission from the first meeting was to mitigate the impacts to the neighbor, which were pretty significant with the first design. And you've got a new proposal which could mitigate those further. But one of the ways, as Commissioner Carapetko said, to do it is to lower the room plate height. So I would give the direction that you lower the first floor to 8 feet, and then you explore making the second floor 7'6". And if you want to, I don't know if you're vaulting the ceilings upstairs, maybe you are, I'm not really sure, but if you vault the ceilings, have open beam, that'll give you the same, or even more feeling of a lofty headroom. And that'll bring the project down 18 inches, which could be significant to the neighbor to the north. And then the other thing is that we have this last minute new design, which is going to require new story poles, and before we can even look at that. And I'm sure that that has the potential to mitigate it. So as I see this project right now, it needs to be continued so that you can redo the story poles, and I would make a motion with direction that you lower the first floor to plate height 8 feet, 7'6" on the second floor. And I see you have your hand raised. If you have a question, come up here if you have a question.
Just a real quick one.
Come up, don't start talking until you get to the mic, because otherwise we don't have it on record.
No worries. Are you guys more in favor of the reduced stairwell design? Is that the one that you guys are preferring me to move forward with?
Well, it seems like it's going to have less impact because it's further away.
Okay.
And I think that's a step in the right direction. But until it's, we got the story poles up, and you presented the plans, and I can see what you're doing. But I think the story poles need to be up so that the neighbor to the north can see what you're proposing. That's only fair.
Understood.
So, yeah, that's what I'm making a motion that have that direction.
I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to on the floor. Any more discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Karapetkov,
Yes.
Commissioner Locke,
Yes.
Chair LePage.
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. You gonna just leave, Commissioner Delge? I didn't think you'd hang around.
You just want to miss the update.
Huh? What?
You just want to miss the director's update.
You got to get that director's report.
We don't have a director, but
No, you do.
Are you going to do a report?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still acting director.
If it was 10 to 8, I'd be out of here.
I can act like a director. So that was my first update. Is you're unfortunately stuck with me for the next couple months as acting director. We're close on a recruitment for a replacement, but that fell through, unfortunately. So we are back out
that's too
already.
bad.
It is too bad.
Yeah.
I agree.
I thought you guys were, like last time you seemed more optimistic.
We were optimistic. I was very optimistic, and unfortunately, just how it goes, it fell through at the very end. So it is what it is, as they say. I want to congratulate Marnie. She has been promoted from principal planner to principal planner. Marnie's moving over, though, so if you remember when we adopted our budget this year, we created a new planning position, principal planner, who's basically in charge of the housing element implementation over the next 7 years. So Marnie applied for that lateral move and was successful, obviously because she knows everything about housing and did a wonderful job with the housing element. So we are working on backfilling her position as principal planner in current planning, and we'll be bringing in some contract support in the short term so that she can really work in earnest on the housing element. Speaking of housing, we have a community meeting, just to let you all know about, on August 21st. The coordinated effort with city staff and the AHA group, the citizen group that is helping us work on looking for ways to amend the housing element that's been certified to remove the city-owned sites. There's a community meeting on the 21st looking to get some feedback, and we've noticed that and we'll continue, but just letting you all know. And then last thing, just to give you a heads up on, Evan did a wonderful job at City Council this month, giving them an update that they requested on the ADU ordinance. The upshot of that is we expect to be back to you all with a redraft in the next 2 to 3 months. Right? Yes. Okay, so we plan to be back to you in the next 2 to 3 months for a workshop.
So by November?
Correct. Yep.
I have a question
for you.
And this is kind of related to the ADU. One thing that I was noticing earlier today was the kitchens in ADUs, and I thought state law requires a cooktop in them, or a stove in them. And we reviewed something that just had a microwave. And anyway, so it's something to follow up on, Evan, I guess, when you get into what really should constitute an ADU and kitchen in an ADU.
I might be able to answer that really quickly. Depending on the size of the unit, it might qualify as an efficiency kitchen, which doesn't necessarily need the full set of appliances. An efficiency kitchen has a much more lenient definition as to what qualifies. Yeah.
Okay, and that's all I have, unless you have any other questions for me. Thank you.
Any more questions for Brandon?
Nope.
Thank you. Okay, we are adjourned.
Yeah. What's that? Nope. That's